Welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes and challenges, and what's really driving them forward. So this afternoon, I'm delighted to have with us John Kent, who's the Managing Director at White Rose Finance. So firstly, John, welcome and thank you for spending some time with us. And if you'd like to introduce yourself and White Rose Finance to the audience, that will be, and how you help people, that would be great.
Thank you, Chris, and good afternoon. I'm the Managing Director at the White Rose Finance Group and have owned the business for the past couple of years, having joined in 2014. The business was set up in 2004, predominantly to help local businesses raise finance where they couldn't do so from their own banks. Managed to survive, the business survived the financial crisis, and actually since then has got stronger and stronger with access to all sorts of alternative funding. And in 2014, when I formally joined the business, we started to build a network under the Broker Plan brand for people that wanted to become commercial finance brokers. And really, that's been what I've been spending my time doing for the past 8 years. And we now have a couple of networks with around 150 brokers reporting into us, mainly helping businesses and property professionals raise finance where they can't necessarily do elsewhere. So that's me, Chris.
Wow, that's quite incredible. Good to talk about Broker Plan a bit later on, and clearly that's something that's growing very well. And could you tell a little bit? And what's really interesting about what you do, John, is I work with lots of businesses across, well, actually coach obviously nationally, but especially in Yorkshire, and finance is always an issue of trying to get the finance, and it always seems to be when you don't need it, it's on offer, and when you do need it, you can't get it. So I know the work you do is really valuable. So I do thank you for that, especially for the business community in Yorkshire. But just to start with a little bit of background, just tell us a little bit about your background, John, how you got into business and why this particular one.
Yeah, so my background, I've always been in sales and marketing, really, but I spent 20 years actually in the corporate world working in manufacturing. Got to a point where I didn't enjoy the politics so much and thought maybe it's time to get out and do something for myself. So I bought into a business, an existing retailer, in 2007, ran that business for 3.5 years, and it was retailing beds, which went very well until two significant changes at the time. One was imports, cheap imports were flooding in from China and also Europe. Yeah. And then the digital marketing explosion allowed people to retail products without having a showroom or a warehouse. So our model really became almost, well, it was unsustainable ultimately. So I'd completed an MBA a number of years before, was always interested in finance, and had an opportunity to retrain as a mortgage broker. And from being involved as a mortgage broker into advising on property investments, and learned a lot about networking, as you will know, Chris. And having built out my network, came across the White Rose Finance Group and connected with the owner at the time, Jeff Wilson, who was struggling with having the time to talk to people who wanted to join the network that he just started under the Broker Plan brand. So I joined the business formally in 2014. And I suppose the reason I joined and stayed, I had an interest in finance. I was very interested in networking, and what this business had to offer really fitted a lot of the connections that I had, the professional connections. So it was one of those things where I suppose, not by chance, but I suppose by good luck to an extent, but also a good connection, Jeff and I dovetailed very well. And since then, I've been pushing that forward and developing that network.
Brilliant, wonderful. And going back to sort of your childhood, is this the sort of thing you saw yourself doing, or did you have another path planned, John?
I never had a path planned, Chris, and certainly no, finance was not something that I decided at any point I really wanted to do. I always liked maths, I always liked English, but if I'm honest, what I really wanted to be was either a drummer, a guitarist, or singer in a rock band. And I did follow that path for a couple of years as a drummer mainly. The band Well Martin, This Is Different, which no one will have heard of. There is an antiquated video on YouTube somewhere. I think I'm somewhere in the background. But no, this was not part of the. I kind of fell into this through, I suppose, developing what things did work for me, and ultimately this is where I find myself.
Fantastic. I'm going to search that up as soon as we finish, John. I can't wait. I do remember, obviously, we do know each other for quite a long time. I do remember somebody telling me how good a singer you were. I don't think I witnessed it myself, but that would have been a long time ago.
Can I just say, I did win York Idol 2009, pretending to be Mick Jagger, and we raised money for MenCap.
Fantastic. I think that must have been what it was. I think somebody must have told me you were a brilliant Mick Jagger. So just thinking about yourself a bit, and obviously White Rose too, what would you say some of the biggest issues you've had to overcome over time?
I suppose the biggest issues from a company perspective, or from my perspective, Chris, which was it either or both?
Either or both, really. It's just what are some of the things that you've had to overcome, really? Because I mean, I'm always fascinated by both businesses and business people. About most people are sort of molded by the challenges more than the successes, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, certainly challenges from a personal perspective was lack of a career plan. I didn't really think that far ahead. I just took decisions based on what was there in front of me. I think I got to the point, as I may have said earlier, that I found the corporate world. I got to a point in the corporate world where I could no longer play the political game, so decided to make a change.
Yeah.
And then the next challenge, the biggest challenge then, was not really being prepared for the transition from employee to business owner. Didn't really appreciate the benefits of all the benefits of being an employee and what I was going to lose. So it took some time, I think, to understand how to forge your way properly and not have the security of ongoing income and the company car and all the rest of it. So that was quite challenging. Some bumps in the road. The way I overcame that was connecting myself with people that could help me, could educate me, and actually then education became the very next thing. I realized one of my strengths was connecting with people, but I spent a lot of time over the past 8 years and continue to do so in educating myself, whether it's books, whether it's going on courses, and just learning things that maybe I thought I knew 20 years ago, but maybe you learn them in a different way now. So that's an ongoing process. From the business's perspective, the two big challenges, one before I was about, was the financial crisis in 2008-9, of course, because the lenders disappeared almost overnight, albeit thankfully there were enough lenders that we were connected with prior to my time to continue. And we also had a breadth of product. So we weren't just focused on property or invoice finance or asset finance. We came across all those things. So the business managed to work its way through there. And then the next big challenge was the change of regime from the FSA to the FCA, a much more stringent regime. But working with Jeff at the time, we recognized that very much as an opportunity. If we could work out what it was that the FCA wanted to have in place, and then what we did was apply for principal status, we could step ourselves ahead of the other brokers that were out there, independent brokers, which it took 8 months to get through that process. But having got that authorization, then we were able to supervise people that wanted to become brokers, which has allowed us to build this network. So those were two key challenges that the business has overcome. We're in a very, touching wood as we carry on, but very strong position, very solid foundation and platform that we've got at the moment for continued growth.
Brilliant. And what do you say some of the biggest things you've learned about business over time?
I think that certainly this business, we employ 20 people now, and those people are absolutely key to this business continuing to grow and being a success. When I joined the business, the team was very different. It was smaller than we are now, but the culture of the business had to change because they didn't necessarily have the right values, the right understanding. There was no mission in place. There was no real strong plan. So I think to answer your question, I think most important thing about this business and what I've learned is about making sure you've got the right people in the right place with the right approach. And I believe that we very much have that now. We have a very, very good team.
Great to hear, and so relevant. And I guess right now, many people I'm talking to, it's about recruiting, but also retaining great people, because it's it's quite a challenge at the moment to find them, but also then keep them when other opportunities are on the horizon, I guess.
I was asked that question, or a question the other day. What are the three biggest challenges with your team? And two were certainly, one, recruitment, and two, retention of the right people. So it is absolutely a challenge. So we continue to fight with both of those things on a constant basis. But building the right environment and having the right culture, rewarding people in the right way, and all the things that you can do to help people look forward and feel a part of it are important.
Bang on, absolutely bang on. I couldn't agree more. And it's a constant activity, isn't it? It's we have to keep improving, not just, as you say, not just the environment and the mission and the values, but also, I guess remuneration potentially. But that's probably, the least important, actually. I find people, they often use the package as a reason, the salary, if you like, as a reason for leaving, but it isn't the real reason. There's always something else, that there was a mismatch with themselves and the organization or the management or various other things. And yet most people focus on the financial reward. But if you get that career, that brightness of future in place, the career plan, and people feel like they belong, then they won't leave.
Yeah, and I think we've tried to make sure that the people that we bring in understand what the culture is, and what the opportunities are within the business. Yeah. I think certainly one of the benefits that people find with a small business is that they can be influential compared to a large business. So actually, we make sure that people are able to contribute, have their say, and we listen. So one of the things we did, going back to the culture change 18 months ago, we asked people what they thought our values were, and in fact should be. And it was a team workshop that we ran to put forward those values and confirm those values. So it wasn't us as the management team and the owners saying these are our values. And in fact, I'm just going to grab something, if I may.
Brilliant, please.
We between the team came across or decided these were the words. So not in any particular order, but integrity, service, forward thinking, diligent, and professional were the words that they came up with, and they're now on our website, and that's what anyone that displays those attributes, those values, whilst looking after clients or working with each other, gets recognition within the business. So we try and demonstrate that internally and externally as often as we can.
Brilliant. And I'd love to see, obviously you've got them there as a tool, but on your website, I mean, it just amazes me how often, John, that many businesses don't have values and points of culture, but those that do keep them internal and rarely share them. But that's how people know who we are, and that's, that attracts the right kind of people, whether it's team, whether it's customers, whether it's even suppliers. This is who we are, and if you engage with us in that level, you will be a great match. But if you don't, then probably somebody else is better for you. And yet, so few people put them on the website. I'd say it's great to see that you've done that.
Yeah, we brought a guy in. We realised that over the past few years, we've been bringing people into the network and training them as best we could by giving them, imparting the knowledge that we had as finance brokers and salespeople and business development guys. But we kept getting feedback that, well, you could probably do this with your training, or this with your training. And actually what we then realized was we needed a professional trainer in the business. So we recruited a trainer who brings many years experience. And actually we said, look, we want training. We want you to deliver training, coordinate training, but not just internally, but not just externally, but internally as well. Right. So he's brought so many ideas that we can do to help ourselves, such as exactly this. And rather than being, we're not all natural presenters, Chris, and it's not something that certainly came naturally to me some time ago. This guy's a natural presenter, and he likes to interact with people, has the confidence to interact with people. and get people involved rather than just impart information. So yeah, he's been a great bonus for us and for the network and for the team.
Wonderful. Well, great to hear, John. It's absolutely brilliant. And I know you're aware we're a coaching organisation. I'm keen to know who the best coaches you've worked with, whether that's business, sport, or life in general.
Okay, there's probably three spring to mind actually. One is my current son's football coach, he's been my son is 14 years old. It's just have to forgive me a moment here. My son was in a car accident. In fact, he was hit by a car, broke both his legs, and ended up being flown via air ambulance to Leeds. This is now, it was October the 24th, 2019. We're now coming up to 3 years since then. Now, this football coach who took Max almost under his wing at the age of 5, made sure that he was reintegrated back into that team, and in however long it took. Thankfully, he's now fully fit, fully recovered, and because of the time that coach spent with him and made sure that all the other guys in the team understood how that was going to happen, he's very much part of the team. And in fact, went back to his first football training session last night. He's just about half an inch shorter than me now at the age of 14 and continuing to grow. So he's been inspirational as a coach, and it's just his ability to understand and associate himself with someone that went through a real trauma. Steve Wright is his name, by the way, if he happens to be listening to this. Second guy is a guy called Mcelroy, who was my MD at Rest Assured. And this guy was unusual in that, running a factory with over 500 members of staff, he knew every single one by their first name. He made a big point about it, but it was his ethos. And whether you were working on the machines, whether you were a delivery driver, or whether you're one of the directors, you would walk in his office and he would greet you by your first name and have a conversation with you. And other than being interested in the people and their backgrounds and their families, which is, it's a very good skill, he also made sure that I came in as a relatively young director into the business. He allowed me to make my mistakes, and he guided me to find my own solutions rather than told me what I should have done. Unfortunately, Mike's no longer with us, but he was an incredible guy, an incredible people person, and he had the same approach to everybody. So everyone that left that organization was a far better, more rounded person than when they joined. So yeah, a great coach. And then Chris, I know it's not a loaded question, but I had a real challenge in my late 30s, which was a lack of confidence in public speaking. And I was working with you at the time, and actually you persuaded me quite strongly and convinced me ultimately that I needed to overcome this. And I think I've said to you once since that time how important that's been to me, because you knew it was right that I should get over it, but it was a fear, a genuine fear. Now, since that training that I did and taking on the host of that networking event, I have the confidence now we opened our conference at the Belfry this year. I stood up in front of 150 people and loved it. I've actually set up an amateur dramatic society with a partner of mine in Escrick Village, and we've had multiple performances in front of audiences at the Queen Margaret's School, 250 plus people. I've played a French genie, an ugly sister. I've sung songs, goodness knows what, and I love it. And not just from a personal, social perspective, but it's helped me so much in work as well that I no longer shy away from those moments when I know I'm going to have to stand up. In fact, I relish it. So yeah, well done, Chris. To you, credit to you. You were the third of those 3 coaches that's made a difference, and I thank you for that.
Mate, thank you so much. You don't need to. It's just great to hear that story. And in all honesty, you're a natural. That's the point. When we talk about fear being a false expectation of appearing real, you're naturally good at it. So it wasn't you know, it was just, yeah, thank you.
It didn't feel like it at the time, but it was the right thing. It was the right thing, and I needed to get over it, and I needed someone to make sure that I did, because I navigated around that fear for 20 years. Somehow managed to not do it, despite the fact I said early on I wanted to be a rock star. Well, how do you do that if you can't get up in front of people? Maybe that's what stopped me. Should have met you earlier.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that. I honestly wasn't fishing for that, but mate, it's just great to help and to see, you know, how natural you are, because I have seen you, you know, seen you do it, and you're just really good. You're really good with people. Well, you've always been good at people on a one-to-one basis, so you're naturally going to be good. You should be good to be with on a one-to-many, and you are. So wonderful. Well, thank you for that. And have you picked up any favourite quotes or sayings along the way? I love to pick up things that people fall back on, either in good times or challenging times.
Yeah, there's one quote which I think everyone knows this, but I picked it up from one of our network partners, again, someone that you know, Darren Peacock, who I work very closely with.
Yes.
And we've removed one word from it because I'm not a religious person, and the official quote starts with the word God. So removing that, the quote is, I'm going to read it so I don't get it wrong. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I think that's something that it's an ethos that I take with me. And actually, by having that ethos, you don't waste your time on things that you can have no control over whatsoever. You realize that you can't, and get on with the things that you can. So that's one that is really close to me. I do have another, which again, one of my favorite actors, and I played the the genie in Aladdin, following on from this great guy, Robin Williams. And one of the things that he said was, you're only given a little spark of madness. You mustn't lose it. And I absolutely love that, because we all need to be a little bit crazy sometimes. So I think that's a great way to live your life by.
Brilliant, a great phrase, and he's one of my heroes too. And I picked a quote up of him which I think relates to coaching in general, but he talked about friends, and he said a friend, but I use this when I talk about coaching as being an unreasonable friend in business, which is a friend is someone that listens to your bullshit, tells you that it's bullshit, and then listens to some more bullshit.
Brilliant. I've not heard. That's brilliant.
He was a truly great man, and I thank you for both of those quotes. And it's interesting to talk about the first one. It reminds me of Stephen Covey talks about two circles: the circle of control and the circle of concern. And if you imagine the concern being bigger than the control, the challenge is, the bigger the gap between the two is, the more stress or fear or anxiety we feel. And you know, it is about, therefore, as your poem and quote says, either increase the control or reduce the concern. Let's not be too worried about the things we can't control, but let's try and increase the control that we have to cover those things that maybe we have a concern or should have a concern about. And I think it's really
try to impart that to my daughter, who's just got her GCSE results last week. So yeah, worrying about once you've done it, it's just no point. It will be what it'll be.
It's really funny, you know. I do remember my exams several times, and I've obviously got a slightly differently wired brain, but I always really enjoyed the gap between finishing the exams and getting the results, because I knew I couldn't do anything about it, and I would really love it. Whereas most of them, or many of my friends would be worrying all the way through, and I just knew it's done. So let's just enjoy it, you know, deal with the outcome when you get it. But yeah, perhaps that's a lesson for us all, including me, with current situations or any situations as we move forward. Brilliant. Oh wow. And John, what would you say you've learned about yourself through your career and your journey?
I think I've learned an awful lot about myself, Chris, and I think one of the things from a professional perspective, learned that actually once I understand something and believe in something, that actually I really enjoy imparting that information, that opportunity on to other people. I can't I can't convince myself if I don't believe in something, but and this really came about, I suppose, when I met Jeff in 2014. I saw this opportunity, the broker plan opportunity, as a huge opportunity for people who wanted to get into finance, wanted to do it in the right way, and be able to set up a business within certain structures and parameters that were already there, connections there, relationships, ideas, and I suppose where I'm going with this is I spent the happiest time of my career with this business so far was actually when all I did was talk to people about joining the network. And that was a good 3 or 4 years when I built the initial size of that network. So I love selling. I love selling, and particularly when I believe in something. So that's something that I've learned about myself. I also believe that I love education. I love to learn. I love to read. I did my MBA whilst I was working. I kind of went off a bit of a tangent in my 20s and then came back to reality and thought maybe I should go and educate myself. And I actually do miss that environment, going to test yourself against exams and whatever. But where work is concerned, education and reading is just a part of the process. You've got to put it into practice. Yeah. And therefore I'm not naturally good at negotiating. I don't like to upset people, so I think, oh, I better not ask that, I better not ask that. And I read a brilliant book, which I can't remember the name of it, but oh no, I can't see it. It's a brilliant book written by a chap called Chris Voss. Never Split the Difference. Have you read it?
Yeah, he presented at our conference a couple of years ago.
Oh, well, I did. It blew me away. Absolutely blew me away, because he's obviously turned negotiation into a series of decisions, and almost a scientific approach. And even having read that, and I've got the Audible book as well, it still doesn't make me a negotiator. But what I do is I practice and fail from time to time, but practice the things. So my point here is that, yeah, reading is all very well, the theory is all very well, but you've actually got to work to become good at something. It's not just about understanding it. And here's one for you. I don't know whether you know. Do you know what Professor Brian Cox got for his maths A level?
No, I'm interested to find out.
So for this genius of a man, for maths A level, got a D.
Oh my goodness!
And in his words, he said, "I realised at that point it doesn't matter how good you are at something if you don't practice." So that was his eye-opening moment to say, I might be clever, but unless I'm going to put the time and effort in, I'm not going to get anywhere. So yeah, and I think that's a really good example. So love all the theory, love reading books, but then you've still got to do the work afterwards. Yep. to become skilled at something. You don't get a skill by reading, you just get the knowledge to try.
Absolutely. I really sound advice, that, because as you say, it's we can know something with it. Well, interestingly enough, it was why Brad Sugars, our founder, went from being a training company to being a coaching company, because originally he started training people because he realized there was a knowledge gap, but then he quite quickly realized that it wasn't just a knowledge gap, it was an implementation gap. And I often say to people that I can give them a reading list of say £2,000 worth of books. That knowledge is enough to take any business to £100 million turnover. It really, really is. But it's not the knowledge that people need. It's the knowledge implemented and then being held accountable to do stuff that really makes a difference. So you bang on it. We can know loads of things, but unless we use it and do it and implement it in what we do, then it really has limited value or no value ultimately.
Yes, yeah.
Brilliant. Well, look, looking forward then, John. I'm really interested to know. You've come so far and you've brought White Rose so far. What's the future look like for you guys moving forward, and what challenges do you face, if any?
We certainly face challenges, Chris. But the future, I think we've got one of the simple plans is we want to continue to recruit people into the network. We've changed our focus a little bit from taking people that are complete novices. Not that there's anything wrong in that, but it takes quite a long time to get them up and running, and therefore it's more costly. we've got this, that we've got so many systems in place now that are being recognised across the sector as unusually good, that we're starting to attract existing brokers to come across to us. So the plan is very much over the next 2 to 5 years to double the size of the network, and ideally bringing in those brokers that are already operating in the sector and can almost manage themselves, more like a traditional network, I guess, and they just use our systems to help them achieve that. Another couple of things that are imminent and actually working on at the moment is the broker plan training program. We're working with the London Institute of Banking and Finance, that's LIBF, who manage and host CMAP qualifications, to get the broker plan training program accredited. We've effectively been signed off. They've been through our modular training program. They know what it looks like. And there's a process that will start, and they said, well, actually, there will be some things we'll have to change, but we will be signed off. It's just a process, probably aiming for the December the 31st for that to be signed off. And we'll be the only accredited training program on commercial finance in the UK that's got the digital badge of LIBF. So I'm excited about that. And the other thing, I'm involved in the creation and authoring of a professional commercial finance qualification. There's going to be 14 topics, of which White Rose Finance, me as the author, are going to be writing one of those, and that's been driven by FIBA, that's the Financial Intermediary and Brokers Association, and LIBF together, and the intention is that will be launched at the end of October. So I'm delighted that I was asked to be involved in that by Adam Tyler at FIBA, and then also managed to pass the submission process for me to take on the authoring. It won't be just me that's doing that in the business here. There's a couple of people who are going to help me, but that will be a massive feather in our cap as well. So they're all the good things. The challenges, without question, the FCA are getting tighter and tighter, more stringent with regulation, and if I'm honest, rightly so. We've recognised this as a gradual creep towards full regulation, but every time something comes down the line, we're aware of it. We're working closely with FCA and FIBA and the NACFB, that's the other broker association, to make sure we implement everything. One of the things that we haven't had is a full-time compliance officer. We've got a compliance committee in the business at the moment, but we'll replace the compliance committee with someone whose sole focus is that. So that we need to make sure we're ahead of the game for the FCA, because we also do regulated mortgages as well as commercial. That's something we built in a couple of years ago. So that's much more highly regulated.
Yes.
So yes, there'll be challenges. I suppose the final thing is with a network across the UK, including Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales, and a couple of people across in Europe, we've got to monitor those people and all their activities. We're responsible for what they do. So having a more stringent regime than we've got at the moment is something that we're developing as well. We can monitor a lot remotely, but we have to actually meet these people face to face on a more regular basis than we do. So yeah, some challenges, but they're all exciting stuff, Chris.
Amazing, mate. It really does. Getting involved in setting these standards for the rest of the industry must be really exciting and very rewarding. I would think.
Oh, massively, yeah. Sometimes opportunities come along, don't they? And although they might take a bit of time and effort, actually you've got to grasp them.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we see them as great.
And it's really interesting because we, as a coaching organisation, coaching is unregulated. We'd love it to be regulated because I think it does raise the standards up to a level where only the better organisations are going to survive. Quite rightly, because as you say, people spend invest a lot of money in things that whether it's us or whether raising finance from you, people like yourself, and they deserve the best advice. So it's really important that something like that happens. Even though I do know, because I do work with a number of financial organisations, the pain that the FCA managed to inflict, whether that's deliberately or accidentally, it does seem like a painful relationship, I think, in many ways.
We fully respect the FCA and everything that they do, in case any of you are watching. We see it as joy, not pain. So thank you.
Absolutely. Go FCA. We love you. So just a few sort of interesting questions before we finish. John. I'm keen to know what you'd say to anyone that was thinking of going into business right now.
Yeah, well, I had to write a few things down here because so you'll have to forgive me if I'm reading a couple of bits out. But yeah, I thought, well, what would I say to someone? And I suppose going back to one of the things that I said earlier, be aware of if you're an employee and you've got a comfortable place and everything's working okay, then it's a huge thing to give up. So please be aware what it is that you're giving up if you are an employee. It's a steep fall, and sometimes you land and it hurts. Make sure you've got contingency. The stats are somewhere in the region of 50% of all businesses fail within the first 5 years. So you've got to have some kind of get out if it doesn't work, and take as much advice as you possibly can. Put together a comprehensive business plan. You want cash flow forecast, profit and loss. One of the things I said is put together this plan and then go to your bank and say, would you lend me money against this opportunity, whether even you want the money or not? And they'll probably tell you why they won't, or they might say, absolutely, you can have the money all day long. So it's a good sounding board there.
Love that.
Research the market for competition. Go and talk to the potential competition. It may well be it's a flooded market, or it may well be you found a niche, or probably, hopefully, somewhere in between. Be humble. Why the hell would anybody buy off you rather than somebody else? Yes, when we're sat around the table having a glass of wine, so I'll sell this, I'll do this, we can achieve this, we'll change the world. Well, okay, everyone said that, so you've got to work out why it is that they're going to come to you, and it will be a lot of it is down to the personality, but there's lots more to it than that. The professional advice I mentioned, accountants, business coaches, the bank I've already mentioned as well. But yeah, ask for the feedback. Consider franchising. A franchise, there's lots of parameters already in place. These are generally tried and tested. BFA are one place to go where they do stringent testing to make sure a franchise is viable. It's not the only association, but yeah, try that. And then two other things, Chris. Talk to potential clients. Tell them this is what we're thinking of. See what you think. But really, really, really importantly, talk to your partner. Talk to your trusted friends, the one that will say to you, no, you're talking out of your whatever, and you need that honest feedback.
Yes.
You want to find out why it's wrong, not that you don't want people that are going to tell you it's right. So I could probably go on. That probably covers most of the things. Be cautious, but bullish.
Yeah, no, I love that idea of taking your business plan to a bank to see if you could borrow money. I never thought of that, John. I think it's beautiful. Absolutely, let's go and find out. You never know, you might end up with some money, but at best, we're going to find out what's right with it. What we need to improve and develop. That I love that completely. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. And unfortunately, the stats you quoted are actually a lot worse than you said. It's actually 80% of businesses fail in the first 5 years. And
wow.
of the 20% that survive, another 80% fail in the following 5 years. So to get to 10 years, you top 4% of any business, which is a pretty cool stat.
That's a great stat. I didn't know that, Chris. That's I'll have to write that down.
It really is. And what's interesting, the other thing you mentioned is the stats are almost reversed for franchises. So franchise businesses are almost reversed because we've got the systems, the processes, the reporting lines, the often the marketing collateral. We've got the things that will help us be successful. And so it's I think your words are very, very wise, and I thank you for those. And looking back yourself, if you started again, with your career or with the Right Rose, is there anything that you do differently, would you think?
Well, I think if we go back to the retail part of what I did, which is 2007, probably take more time in making the decision than I did, and the things I've just gone through. Do a little bit more of each of those. If I'm honest, I saw people, having been in that industry, I saw people that had very, very successful businesses. I didn't give them the credit for the hard work that they did to be so successful. And some of those people, I maybe thought, I could do that. It's easy. If he can do that, I can do that. actually so they've got something. Those people that are still there and survive that time, they've got something which is probably unusual to them. They've got some kind of self-discipline, some niche that there may be that other people don't, which is why they're still there. So certainly take more time. And on the current business, yeah, the only thing I would do differently since I've joined is probably spend more time recruiting those existing brokers than trying to attract new brokers. We've certainly focused on generating revenue at the front end for people to join us, and we've got some brilliant people that have come through that way, but they take an awful lot of time and capacity from the team here. Actually, now we're changing the balance of the business to bring people in that are more self-sufficient. The business is running itself more naturally. I know you're very much into automation and systemization. I've learned that from you, Chris, from many years ago, and I really see that as the way we're reshaping this business. So that's the only thing I think I would do in this business. You're far less susceptible to sort of external factors and changes if you've got ongoing income, residual income, rather than having to sell another one and another one.
Yeah. No, that makes sense, and it's interesting what you said, John, because and you mentioned it before. Is I've worked with a few sort of financial organisations, and I remember one advice-based organisation, and they were attracting existing advisors, and just by providing a structure, a vision, almost a safe place, we were helping people really flourish, and they were really finding that being part of a bigger organisation was really helping them. The independent side sounds great, but only so many people are cut out to be fully independent themselves from others and from an organisation, and giving people the ability to be part of something can often help them really, really flourish. And that can include the management, even if there's no need to, even if they're almost self-employed. It's actually giving them the structure, and a bit of the accountability can help people really, really, really fly. That makes sense. And finally, I am keen to know, I'm very keen to know in your case, what would be the best advice you give to an 18-year-old you if you could go back and do so?
So, yeah, I thought about this one as well. One, be aware of shiny penny syndrome. Don't chase after whatever you think is the quick win, the new idea. There's too many of them out there. So that would be the first thing. The second thing is actually work out what you really, really, really want to do. Put a plan together and understand, because I didn't understand, how much time and effort it's going to take and hard work it's going to take. But if you do actually have something you really want to do, and you are prepared to put the time, effort, and work into it, you'll make a success of it. But it's deciding what that correct thing is, and then actually committing to it for enough time, effort to get there. And my final thing is, don't look back. Once you've gone, don't look back. Just keep going forward, because it's easy to look back and go, I wish. Actually, just plow on and make sure that you're doing the right thing. So they're the three things. It's mainly about working out what to do and getting a plan. That's the biggest thing that I would have told myself. I didn't have that plan, Chris.
Yeah, but bang on. But 18 is an interesting age, because it's like there is a question mark about whether or not that's okay, because it's like at 18 we don't know a lot, so it's almost okay. I really struggle with almost the idea of my kids, and even myself looking back, is 18 we don't really know a lot. I know we think we do, but it's like it's okay to maybe get into our 20s not knowing, but eventually formulating it better. But interesting if you say about don't look back. I interviewed the owner of a couple of restaurant chains in Harrogate, York. You probably know him, Lucia's and Cut and Craft. And he said, and I love the interview, and he said very similar: don't look back, because we're not going in that direction. And I just love that, because it's bang on, isn't it? It's only look back if you go that way. Yeah.
Well, that which reminds me actually of another quote which I think is relevant, and it's the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The next best time is now.
Brilliant, love it, absolutely. the past is only there to learn from, in my opinion. That's the key thing. It's not, the past isn't the future unless we make it so. So, John, it's been absolutely delightful. Thank you so much, and thank you for sharing, what you're doing and the successes you're bringing, to White Rose and with White Rose to other people. And I'd be great to swing by another year and maybe catch up where you are. Maybe we've doubled again, and where you are with the broker plan process.
Well, that would be great, Chris. We absolutely should. And yes, should anybody need funding, then please do look us up in any way, whether it's property or business related. Then please do look us up. We'd be delighted to tell you whether you got the right funding or find some additional for you.
And John, thank you for reminding me. So, what's the best way of contacting you or White Rose?
The best way would be to contact me on my mobile number 07540 013 165, or email me at jkent@whiterosefinance.com. Otherwise, look at the White Rose Finance website or the broker plan website.
Perfect. Well, John, again, thank you so much for your time, and I'm sure we'll catch up soon.
I'm sure. Cheers, Chris. Thank you very much. All the best. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.